Hello everyone, Craig here again from blog.chivers.com. If you're not familiar with me already, I'm a Teams subject matter expert at Microsoft. Just wanted to record a quick one today just on audio conferencing and specific dial out in Australia. There is a common scenario that customers ask us around how licensing affects dial out in Australia. And so I thought I'd just put together a quick session just to cover how it works and a potential solution for you as well if you're stuck. So let's dive straight in. So you may already be familiar with our licensing model, but if you're not, there's essentially three ways to get dial in and dial out audio conferencing within Australia. You've got your E5 licensing, first of all, which includes the audio conferencing, so dial in and dial out. And if you have that E5 license, you get 60 minutes per user per month to call out to Zone A countries. That's most countries like US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, etc. If you do happen to make an outbound call from the audio conferencing service, such as a Teams meeting, to a Zone B country, they're just charged on a per minute basis and charged to your communications credits within your tenant, which typically ends up on a credit card. Now, if you don't have E5 licensing and you've got E3 licensing, there's two options. The first one is the paid add-on. It's a couple of bucks per user per month. That gives you the same rights as an E5 license with that additional 60 minutes per user per month to dial out to those Zone A countries. Just on that additional 60 minutes per user per month too, that's actually pooled across the entire tenant. So if you've got, say, 10 users and one of them makes a lot of calls and the other 9 don't, that single user can actually use the pooled minutes between those 10 users. So 10 times 60 would be 600 minutes per user per month that those 10 users could essentially use to make those outbound calls to Zone A countries. The other option you've got as an E3 license user is using the free audio conference license. Now that was a recent addition. I think it appeared last year around March or April time. What that enables you to do is have dial-in functionality, just as what's included with E3 with the paid add-on and E5 with the obviously included audio conferencing. But it only allows dial-out to US and Canada only, and there's no way to call an Australian number today via that free service or any other number for that matter that isn't a US or Canadian number, including the ability to use communications credits for those calls as well. So if you assign a user that license today, they will get dial-in functionality, but they won't be able to call non-US or Canadian numbers from the audio conferencing service. And if they try to, they'll actually fail. So just a quick diagram to step through how exactly that works. So if you're an E5 licensed or you're using the paid E3 add-on service, when you make an outbound call during a Teams meeting using the audio conferencing service, essentially your client utilizes the conferencing service inside of M365. It connects the call to the PSTN and then obviously places that call to the external user, such as a mobile or a landline phone, for example. Now that works fine if you're using the paid add-on or the E3 or E5 or license there. Now, if you're using the free license for E3, the service works exactly the same, except you'll see there on the bottom diagram that for external calls, you can only call US and Canadian numbers. So as I say, if you've got that free license assigned, dial-in works fine, but dial-out will fail if you call a non-US or Canadian number whilst that license is assigned to the end user. Now, what's the solution to this? Well, if you have direct routing and you have phone system licenses, you can actually send those outbound calls via your direct routing service instead. So what customers will do is they'll assign the free audio conferencing license to a user, so dial-in audio conferencing works. And then if that user wants to make an outbound call to add someone into the meeting that's not a US or Canadian phone number, they'll route that call out via direct routing. Now, this only works with direct routing today. It doesn't work with Operator Connect as of yet. The diagram there explains how this works. So from a Teams user point of view, the call ends up in the conferencing service inside of M365. It then goes out via your on-premises or hosted direct routing SBCs, and then out your SIP trunk or ISDN if you're still using that to the PSTN, and we'll place an external call. Now, the benefits of this, of course, is you're using your direct routing SIP trunk capabilities as opposed to using the audio conferencing service. And of course, it gets around that call block issue if you're using the free license and it's not a US or Canada number. So how do we actually go about configuring this? Well, from a high level, there's a couple of steps involved. The first four are kind of mandatory. The fifth one's optional depending on your environment. But we'll step through this in a moment in PowerShell. But essentially, from a high level, we want to go ahead and create a new PSTN usage or use an existing one if you already have direct routing configured and up and running in your environment. You can go ahead and create a new voice route to route those calls via the new PSTN usage, or again, use existing ones if you have them in place. We do need to go ahead and create a new audio conferencing voice routing policy though, which will utilize that new or existing PSTN usage that you may already have in place. And then we'll go ahead and assign the newly created audio conferencing routing policy to your test user. What that'll do is it'll tell the service that rather than sending the call out the audio conferencing gateway, send it via your direct routing gateway instead. Now there is an optional step there as well, which is to create a dial plan. So if you don't already have a dial plan to normalize phone numbers in your environment, you can go ahead and create your own one. The service dial plan for Australia is pretty useful, but obviously if you have additional dial plan needs that are not addressed by the service dial plan, you can go ahead and create a dial plan and assign that to your users if you wish. All right, let's jump over to PowerShell and we'll actually have a look to see what this looks like a second. Okay, so here's our PowerShell window. I like to use the ISE. If you don't use the ISE yourself, I would strongly recommend using it because it's awesome. So what we'll do first of all, so I've gone ahead and connected to Microsoft Teams, so connect-Microsoft Teams. I've signed in as a tenant administrator. We're going to step through those four options first of all. So the first one there is to get the current list of PSTN usages, just so we know what we're working with. So we can see we've only got the local one there. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new one there, and I'll call it USG-Oz Audio Conf Dial Out DR. Bit of a habit with adding the USG at the start of things. I've been a UC engineer for many years, so it just keeps things nice and tidy. All right, so we've created our PSTN usage. We can go ahead and get our voice routes there as well, so we'll go ahead and have a look at that. All right, so we have an existing voice route there at the moment that's pretty generic, so we'll go ahead and create a new voice route. Now, of course, you may already have voice routes in place. Now, mine's just spat an error back because it can't find the SBC, so I'm just using generic SBC names here, but we can fix that up. Obviously, in your environment here, you would go ahead and enter your SBC names correctly here. This is just a demo environment, so obviously it's not going to work for me today there, but I've just referenced my PSTN usage there as well. We'll go ahead and get any online audio conferencing routing policies. So we've just got the global one here at the moment. So we can go ahead and create a new one. There we go, let's create a new one. So that's our new voice routing policy there. And then we can go ahead and actually grant that policy to our test user, which in this case is me. Cool, all done. Apart from the error with the SBCs, at this point, we'll give it about 10-15 minutes or so for everything to sync in the back end. And then I'll be able to jump into a Teams meeting, make an outbound call from the Teams meeting, and that call will come from myself then via the direct routing that has been set up in my environment, as opposed to from the Microsoft Audio conferencing service. So quick and dirty, but that steps you through how to configure your audio conferencing service to route calls via direct routing to get around that licensing challenge when it comes to using the free license for audio conferencing, just so you can dial out to those numbers from other than US or Canadian numbers there. All right, we'll jump back to the slides here a second. Cool. And if anyone has any questions on this, feel free to jump onto the blog there. It's blog.chiffers.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter or X, I guess, as it's now known. It's at @cchiffers. But until next time, thanks very much for watching. Cheers, guys.